Their first meeting since the general election. Faisal Islam, our political editor, is there with the leader of the SNP. Faisal.
Thank you. Yes, I'm here at Bute House. David Cameron left just under an hour ago after this meeting between the Prime Minister and the First Minister of Scotland, who joins me now. Nicola Sturgeon, First Minister, thank you for joining us live on Sky News. What was the tone of this meeting? Was it constructive with yourself and the Prime Minister?
Yes, it was constructive. It was businesslike. It's no secret that David Cameron and I are a world apart politically, but you know, we've got jobs to do. I'm the First Minister of Scotland, he's the Prime Minister of the UK. We serve the people we serve, and we've got to try to find ways of working together, and we will do that. So the meeting was constructive. I think we made some progress on some key issues. We've agreed to meet more regularly than we have in the past, and that our respective ministers will meet to discuss issues of mutual importance. So overall, I think it was a positive meeting.
So you asked for more powers going beyond what the Smith Commission asked. Did you get any assurance?
Well, I think two things of significance were agreed in the meeting. Firstly, there was a commitment from the Prime Minister that the legislation that they will shortly introduce to the Westminster Parliament to implement the proposals of the Smith Commission will implement those proposals in full. We had a report of a Scottish Parliament committee yesterday that said that where they've got to thus far doesn't fully implement the Smith Commission proposals. So there's a commitment to do that, and we'll work with them to make sure that happens. Secondly, I have said that we will put forward proposals for devolution further than the Smith Commission proposals. Prime Minister has said they will consider those proposals. I'm not going to put words into his mouth and say he's agreed any specific proposals, but there is an agreement to look at that, and there will be a meeting between the Deputy First Minister and the Secretary of State for Scotland to take that discussion forward.
So what are we talking about there? Corporation tax, further welfare?
Well, you know, I want Scotland to full fiscal autonomy. David Cameron doesn't. What we said in our manifesto was that there were priority powers over and above the Smith Commission that we wanted to see devolve. So what we're talking about are business taxes, employment legislation, the minimum wage, and more powers over welfare. Now, these are not powers that are randomly put forward by us. These are the key levers you need to grow the economy faster, to get more people into jobs, and to lift people out of poverty. They're powers for a purpose, and as a priority, I want to see the Scottish Parliament able to exercise those powers on its own.
So you've got 56 MPs now. Why don't you lay down some amendments to this Scotland Act and suggest full fiscal autonomy? Why don't you go for it now?
We undoubtedly will lay down amendments to the Scotland Act. What I'm hoping, though, is that by the time we get to the stage where the Scotland Act has been amended, we might have made progress between the Scottish Government and the UK Government and have agreed further ways in which we can go beyond Smith. Now, it remains to be seen whether we can do that, but that's surely a better way of making policy than simply having amendments coming from our MPs. There will be those, but I hope we can reach some agreement on some of these powers. I also think that other voices in Scotland, whether that's the trade unions or business organisations, Civic Scotland, they want to have a say in this as well.
So definitively, even though the oil price has done what it's done and that changes the deficit balance for Scotland, you still want fiscal autonomy as soon as possible?
But fiscal autonomy is about growing your economy, it's about growing the revenues of your country. So yes, I want Scotland to be as empowered as possible in that respect. But I also recognise that even if there was an agreement, which there's not just now, to move to full fiscal autonomy, that would take time to do. As a priority, I want to get our hands on the levers that really matter as quickly as possible, and that is about business taxes and employment law, welfare. These are the things that matter to any government anywhere in the world when it comes to growing your economy and getting more folk into jobs and tackling poverty.
So you can do business with the Tory government?
Look, I campaigned in this election against a Tory government, so there is a world of difference between David Cameron and I politically, but we've both got jobs to do. We can't just sit and indulge our political differences. We've got an obligation to the people who vote for us to try to get things done. I suppose my overarching message to David Cameron, I said it to him on the phone last Friday, I've said it to him again today, is that he's got a choice to make about how he responds to how people in Scotland voted last week. He can act as if it's business as usual and nothing has changed, and people will draw their own conclusions from that. They'll think, well, Westminster is incapable of listening and responding. Or he can prove that Westminster does listen, it does respond, it can deliver a better deal for Scotland. The choice is his, but I hope he goes down the latter route.
Did you raise any concerns about the conduct of the election campaign? The images of your predecessor as a pickpocket and a thief?
I think David Cameron probably knows my views on the characterisation of Scotland, and I think many people in Scotland found his campaign You know, and the contrast between that and what he said in the referendum, where Scotland was encouraged to lead the UK, and suddenly in the election campaign we were, you know, not welcome to have a view in the UK government. But the election campaign is behind us. This is now about getting on to deliver the best. My job is to deliver the best possible deal I can for Scotland, and I'm going to do everything in my power to do that.
Just lastly, I mean, some of the Labour Party might have suspected that as soon as these doors were closed, you might have in fact high-fived David Cameron, given that you both managed to pick at the carcass of the Labour Party.
I can exclusively for Sky News reveal there was no high-fiving. Look, David Cameron and I don't agree on much politically, and we recognise that. And where we disagree, and you know, other issues that were raised today, for example, the Human Rights Act, we will austerity. Before we talked about more powers, we talked about what I consider to be the need to end austerity. So we'll disagree passionately on these things, but we've also got a duty to try to work together to deliver for the people we serve. So our relationship will be constructive. I hope it will be business-like, and it will focus on where we can getting things done. But I will still, in every opportunity I've got politically, campaign against Conservative governments, because I don't think they're good for Scotland, or indeed, for that matter, for the rest of the UK.
First Minister, thank you very much for your time, much appreciated. Well, there we have it, live from Butte House, the First Minister on her meeting with David Cameron, saying it was constructive and it was